Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Riffing with Scott. Sorry I'm running a bit late. I was busy watching a show and completely lost track of time. But we're here now and we're ready to go. Thanks for everyone for dropping in. Brent, hi. Anya, hi. CJ, Diablo Macho, Omar, all the regulars. How you all doing? Hope you're well. Alright. It is beautiful. I'll be visiting Scotland soon, as my fiance's mum lives there. Scotland is a beautiful, beautiful place. I mean, a little bit biased. I've got Scottish heritage, and you know, my name is Scott, so I feel obliged to say that it's beautiful. But really, it actually is. Edinburgh is probably one of my favourite cities in the world. Actually, it's a beautiful, beautiful city, and the countryside is just mint. There's a very riffy boy. VRB. Me and Alex will produce more of those stupid memes at some point in the future. Alright, so thank you for bearing with me on my little hiatus. We're going to be looking at Water Over the Bridge, which is pretty riffy. It's a big riffy boy, this one. Quite fun. We did a playthrough, or as we like to call it, a walkthrough of this song. You can turn down the tunes. Oh yes, I keep forgetting to do this. Streamer Pro, right here. Thank you, Brent, for picking up on that. Yeah, so this one we did a video for, and it was a bit of fun. We got told off multiple times for standing on public property, but it was a lot of fun. And I don't even remember how we came about the idea of doing it, but we just figured that, you know, guitar playthroughs are kind of done a lot, and we wanted to break the mold a little bit, so we thought we'd kind of do something that was somewhere between a playthrough and a stupid video clip. Anyway, so I'm not wearing sunglasses like I am in the video. I'm going to be geeking out, talking all the riffs from this track. Before I do, let's just check that everything sounds good. Let me know if you can hear that nice and clear. Looks like it's coming through for me. You did a guitar playthrough. That's awesome. Send us a video. Upload it to YouTube, please. And obviously, if you guys have done any covers of any of the tracks that we've run through so far, please let me know. I do love watching people do covers. It's good fun. So yeah, just let me know if the guitar sounded okay. Cool. Let's just check that track. Guitar is a little quiet. Cool. Sweet. I'll just angle this down a smidge. There we go. Nice. All right, let's give this one a red hot go. It's been a while since I played this track, so apologies for sloppy playing if it happens. I'll do my best to smash it out in one go. Let's see how we go. begun. We know we've really just begun. Whew! Sick. That song's fun. Get the walking face ready. Yeah, that one needs like stank face throughout. It's kind of necessary. This band is legendary. Thanks, Connor. You're a ledge. You are legendary, my friend. Hey, Marco. Thanks for tuning in. Whenever I hear this track, I see the video in my mind's eye. You just see me and Simone being dickheads, basically. Your guitar head bob in this song looks way cooler when you're wearing sunnies. That's true. I mean, I just look like a nerd right now, but that's my true self. Thanks, Mary. It's like a try not to nod challenge. Bloody awesome tune. The challenge is to nod. It's not, that difficult. I love playing that song. It's a lot of fun. It's a challenging one. Some really cool riffs and stuff in there. I'm trying to remember if there are any interesting stories about this one. I think this was just like, we had that original riff, that big verse riff, and we wanted to do something with it. And a lot of our ideas were sort of built around this sort of like, I guess Devin Townsend-y kind of like Lydian sounding thing. And we kind of wanted to just go full, like we wanted to do something that was like sort of Ocean Machine era Devon with whatever Voyager is, basically, and just smash those together and see what happens. So hopefully you can kind of hear some of that early to mid 90s Townsend influence in this track, because that was kind of what we were going for a little bit. And just something that was big and anthemic, because like to me this is sort of like the climax of the record, and Runaway is sort of like the ending credits. I guess that's kind of how it feels to me anyway. I'm not sure if that translates on the record, but yeah, it kind of feels like this is the pinnacle track, and then Runaway is sort of like the nice relaxing epilogue afterwards. Okay, so let's just talk through these parts. Definitely hear the Townsend influence. Yeah, it's just Lydian. Basically, anything with Lydian mode is going to sound, and with distortion, is going to sound a bit like Devin Townsend. He's basically just sort of monopolized that sound. But, whatever. It's cool. We'll still use it. Lydian's my favorite mode, so... for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, Lydian is basically a mode of the major scale. It's the fourth mode of the major scale. So it's actually... It sounds very much like major, like literally the major scale. The only note that's changed is the fourth note of the major scale, which is sharpened. So you get this sort of like... Well, I'll just play it for you. I'll just play it. How's about that? So normally your major scale sounds like this. Very sort of like naff sounding. But Lydian mode only changes one note, changes the fourth note. So rather than playing the 4 like this, you sharpen it by a half step. So you get this instead. Which is a much cooler sound. Yeah, like Hide Nowhere. Like that kind of sound. If you were to play that with a natural 4 instead, it sounds stupid. But Lydian makes everything sound cool. So pro tip, use Lydian. Sounds great. Cool. Don't forget the Korn influence. That's true. There's definitely some of that big open A 7-string vibe going on. Alex is totally correct. Lydian is king. I agree. All right. So this first riff is pretty straightforward. Just a bunch of opens. Just a bunch of strong zeros at the beginning. And what we do is we slowly bend over that 12th fret, that octave. Now, it says slowly bend up because I can't find a way to notate like bending over a period of notes. So I've just written it literally above the 16ths there. Then there's a little part where Simone and I do like a tapping on octaves. Because we're in drop A, we can use all of these octaves, which is nice. So we do this sort of thing. Well, I'm doing this one. So it's just 24, pull off to 12, pull off to open, hammer to 12, hammer to 24 with my middle finger. Now, because we wanted this to sound absolutely disgusting, Simone is playing the exact same thing but just down a fret. So it kind of gives you this minor second harmony, but together. So it sounds really, really heinous, actually. Now the hard thing about it is getting from this bend. So realistically, like, we recorded this part in 2 sections. Realistically, you can change this to an 8th note and that'll give you enough time to actually transition. Realistically, you're not really getting that very last 16th in time with the tap at 24. It's really 1 E and 2 E and. So yeah, bit of cheating, but who cares? It's literally 1/8 note, or 1/16th note, I should say. Cool. That's that section. It's pretty straightforward. Just a big old fat riff. It's a lot of fun. Then we go into this part, which is in 7/4, which is sort of where the Townsendy stuff starts to kick in. Now these bends, I'm bending at second, and Simone joins in on first. So what kind of happens is you get this really like dank sounding bend. So 3rd fret and 2nd fret, that's my favorite. Yeah, so they kind of cross over each other. So when you're listening to the track, you can listen to my side and then Simone's side, panned hard left, hard right, and you'll hear the bends kind of on either side. So I think I missed a question here. Your guitar sounds amazing. What is the program in which you write guitars? Oh, thanks, Mary. The program, well, we're actually, I pretty much only ever use Pro Tools, which is my recording software. Looks a little something like this. I don't actually use like Guitar Pro or any of those programs. I just find that I'd rather write the riff on my instrument and then track it immediately, because I tend to vibe off the actual sound of the guitar. So, you know, my patches will produce a certain kind of vibe and personality that I like, and I kind of go off of that. I find things like Guitar Pro and MIDI programming to be a little lackluster. Like, it's I guess one thing I've never really been very good at is imagining how things would sound if they were produced better. You know, like, one thing that blows my mind about old classical composers is the fact that they were able to imagine their orchestrations in full in their head. I don't have the capacity to do that. At least I don't feel like I do. I really need to hear something that resembles the end product in order for me to feel satisfied with what I'm hearing and what I'm creating. So I tend to write ideas with my guitar in front of me and then track straight into Pro Tools and then layer within Pro Tools, so I can kind of get that constant positive feedback from what I'm creating, so I can constantly hear it back. I hope that's helpful. Yeah, I've never really been one for Guitar Pro, but obviously, you know, tons of people have created great records with it, so it's horses for courses, really. I like all songs in Colours in the Sun, but Water Over the Bridge is my fave. Ah, sweet. Thanks, Charles. Yeah, this one's good fun. So we've got these big old bends. Apart from that, me and Simone's parts are pretty much exactly the same. We're doing these big, like, 4-note power chords. just because they sound a bit chunkier and thicker. So we really wanted to go for that like over the top, ridiculously like, really chunky kind of tone. So we're doing these big 4-note power chords in A. All of this stuff is the same. Ash changes his drum groove halfway through. And then we've got this kind of interesting, I guess it's kind of like a, I don't even know what's going on here in terms of like the harmony, but it's quite odd. The pre-chorus kind of sounds like this. So you get this kind of half-whole diminished sound. Based on how we stack the chords, though, it sounds like it's sort of shifting keys. And leads you back into the A. Simi's basically just playing the same thing, but with big, like, open chords over the top. So that would be 8/8, really. Okay. That's right, yeah. She's producing like these open 9 chords. That's what she's doing, which sound quite nice over the top of it. Kind of gives it this big, wide kind of sound. Charles, who wrote the lyrics? Danny writes all the lyrics. He's basically always been the lyricist of the band. I don't think anyone else has contributed lyrics at any point in the band's history. I could be wrong about that, but as far as I know, Danny is the sole lyricist of the band. Then we go straight back into this big ass riff. That whole thing is the same. Then we go into sort of like a harmony part in verse 2. I remember verse 2 was an absolute nightmare to write because we wanted to do something a little different, but it took us a while to work out what that was. So we shift up a tone at this point, going from sort of like an A, I guess an A Lydian to a B Lydian instead. And Simone and I's parts sort of like interlock. There's a bit of harmonization, a little bit of merger. Again, we always like to mess around with the harmony with the two guitars because it's one thing to take advantage of, having a nice thick stereo guitar sound when you're playing rhythms, but it's really nice to be able to mess around with the harmony a little bit too. So I wrote this section, and Simone basically we divvied the parts up. Whoever plays whatever, doesn't really matter. My part is the lower section. This whole part is supposed to sound really like thick and sludgy and low. So it's not supposed to sound like the harmony is supposed to sound quite chunky, I guess. Quite thick and sludgy. Yeah. Water over the bridge makes all my gent-loving pals go. Sick. That finger tap section sounds a lot like a Chaos Divine song. Yeah, they do a lot of that tapping stuff, which is really sick. I really like the way Ryan comes up with those ideas. Oh my god, I'm so bad with names. Simon. Yeah, I love the way that they kind of merge their parts as well. Like they do a lot of that tapping harmonized, and someone doing rhythm while someone else is doing tapping. It's really cool. I like that a lot. So my part's the low part. Simi is playing the part above. I can't remember the next part. Yeah, something like that. I'm basically sight reading this. Yeah, so you get that kind of sound. And when the two parts combine, there are points where the notes converge and points where they kind of divide. Can I demonstrate the sound of the neck pickup? Yeah, absolutely. So maybe I'll just like do a little, I don't know, run or something. So that's your bridge. I'll maybe... Here's the neck. It's a really creamy sounding neck pickup, actually. The other cool thing about the Duvel, this is a Mayonnaise Duvel, by the way. This is the Elite model, and this is a Sentient Nazgul set from Seymour Duncan. The other cool thing is I've got this push-pull for coil tapping, so the neck can also be a single coil neck pickup. Which is a really nice kind of spanky, like... Has a really kind of spanky tone, which is sick. And the bridge... Yeah, it's a really, really nice sounding... It's really, really nice single coil tone as well. I use this nowhere near often enough. But it's a sick guitar. I love this thing so much. It does everything I could ever want a guitar of this style to do. I think I've only heard one Chaos Divine track, and it was their cover of Africa. That is one hell of a cover. I agree. You should go ahead and check out all of their stuff. They're a sick band. Really nice dudes. We've toured with them a bunch of times. Yeah, sick guys and right, great music. We need a new album, like yesterday. Yeah, look, working on it. We're working on it. There's nothing else to do. So then we have this sort of second bridge part here. Simi wrote this section. We kind of had this skeleton of just chords and didn't really have anything else. It was just... that little bit of Lydian at the end. So we sort of had this this chord progression that we liked, but we wanted to do something a little bit more interesting. So Simone kind of threw in these really cool little fills at the end of each bar to kind of make the section a little more interesting. So there's something to catch in there for all of the kind of more nerdy guitar players and people who want to hear something a little bit more interesting than just a bunch of octaves. The Duvel I ordered won't have the Sentient Nazgul pickups. Instead, it will have the TKOs by Bare Knuckle. I haven't tried those exact pickups, but I've got a guitar with a pair of VH2s, which are sick. The neck pickup VH2 in particular is really, really nice. And I had a guitar with is it Nighthawk? Yeah, Nighthawks in it as well, and those sounded sick too. Yeah, it's a really, really awesome company. I rate Bare Knuckle super high. If I get another Mayonnaise at some point, I might even contemplate moving to Bare Knuckle for it, because their pickups are absolutely mint. And it's nice to get something a bit different as well. What's the point in having two of the same instrument when you can kind of change it up and get something a little bit different? So yeah, I might look into that. What 80s cover would Voyager do? Ooh. We've actually always wanted to do a cover of Electric Blue. We love that song. Electric Blue is such a banger. And And actually, if you've ever been to a Voyager headliner show, we tend to we tend to have that song as like the song after we just finish a set. So it's sort of, yeah, it's just a little bit of us thrown in. I reckon we could do a good cover of that song. The middle is expressed. Yeah, it's got a really nice sort of full tone. I do like quite a bit of mid-range in my sound as well. So, you know, that'll always come out a little bit more based on how I like to dial in my tones as well. How has your playing changed on colours compared to earlier work like Devil in Me? Well, I was actually, I was not even in the band when Devil in Me was released. I actually, I joined from Meaning of I onwards. But I can say from the way the band used to write riffs to now that it's become a little more, I guess, groove oriented. The earlier stuff is much more scalar and more about harmonized guitar lines and single note guitar lines further up the neck of the instrument, whereas the riffs that we're coming up with and ideas we're coming up with these days tend to explore more of the lower register of the instrument. I guess it's just a stylistic thing. We're sort of moving away from the kind of constant like guitar noodly stuff and moving more into just playing strong rhythms with some atmospherics and stuff like that. Not to say that we won't return to that kind of style every now and then. I think that's probably the biggest change. I've always been a massive fan of riffs, if that wasn't completely obvious. I come from like a school of like Rage Against the Machine and stuff like that. Like I love that band and love what they do musically a hell of a lot. So a lot of my influence is like the riff side of things. Simi's the same. Like she obviously loves a good riff as well, but she was more of a lead player than I ever was. I kind of came to lead guitar a little bit later, so I guess my influence on the band has been to explore riffs and try and create them in interesting ways and do interesting things with them. I like to have a chord progression or a certain movement of the root note, but then explore the harmony in that by chucking in some more interesting stuff on the upper end of the riff. So it's not just a bunch of O's and like a couple of notes here and there. We kind of really like to explore the harmony. Actually, this section is a perfect example of that because we had a bass chord progression, but we wanted to do something more interesting with it. So, do you know what happened to Red Descending? Those guys were amazing. I actually don't. I feel like I was very young when those guys were gigging more often. No, keep it groovy, please. You're all the better for it, in my opinion. Yeah, don't worry. I don't think the groove is going anywhere anytime soon. We all love a good groove, a good riff. So yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere. Anyway, yeah. So this section we have a few little, I guess, noodly guitar bits to make the whole section a little bit more interesting. So. Kind of like I don't even know what you'd describe it. It's kind of like an old blues rock kind of thing. And then we go to... Oh, oops. Sorry, I keep stuffing that up. I'm so used to playing it at speed. So this is a really weird one to play because it crosses strings. You normally get used to the sound or the feel of when you're playing a note that's higher in pitch, you move further down the instrument. But at this point, we're kind of crossing strings, and so the direction of the pitches themselves actually changes. And we're actually hammering that last note. Like that. So we're picking the open D and then hammering the 9th fret. So these are all Simone's ideas. I really like that one. Just flows really nicely into the B at the end. And I also have a soft spot for like closed harmony, like really closed dissonances. and utilizing the open strings of the guitar to create stuff that's interesting. And the last one. And then it's just octaves from there. It's great hearing you like this, very knowledgeable, and gives the fans a better understanding of you and the music. Thanks, Craig. Appreciate it. I work as a guitar and bass teacher at a bunch of high schools, so this is more or less an extension of what I do for a living anyway. So thank you. I'm glad that I'm making sense. If you have any questions, obviously just like shoot, like go nuts. That's what the stream is for. It's for you guys to ask questions. And I'm always happy to answer them as best I can. Obviously, I don't know everything, but I try my best. Oh, shit. Look at that. That is a typo. That should be the same as this. Oh. Well, you know what we're talking about. You can gather from everything else that's written in this line that it's supposed to be the same as everything else. So, oops. We are not foolproof, unfortunately. Then, right at the end here, that is a classic little bit of Lydian right there. So, the thing that's cool about Lydian is the sharp 4 resolves in 2 different directions. So here, when you hear this, naturally, your ears just go, oh, that sounds awful. It's not the greatest sound ever. But the cool thing is that it has a really strong pull to resolve somewhere that is more consonant. And the great thing is you can move in equally in 2 different directions in order to resolve it. You can go from the sharp 4 to the 5th, which sounds nice. But you can also go to the major 3rd. So what's cool about the sharp 4, naturally when we first hear it sounds horrendous, right? Who would ever use this? But in the context of Lydian, it's actually really nice, and it can resolve in 2 different directions. So you can kind of use that wherever you want. Yeah, there's something about Lydian, man. I just love it. Sounds great. Talking about covers, you guys should really cover Duran Duran. I mean, if you hear Colors, the Duran Duran influence is so strong, especially Alex's slap bass lines. Sick. I haven't listened to much Duran Duran, if I'm honest. I feel like the 80s kind of like went straight past me because my parents were really into like 70s folk and 70s prog. Like Pink Floyd were massive in my house, but 80s music just didn't exist in my household. So a lot of it kind of went straight by me, never checked it out. I know that I'm probably outraging a bunch of people right now, but don't worry, I'm listening to more and more of it these days. And obviously I've been really digging the synthwave stuff, so I love the sound, like the 80s sounds. I just haven't listened to a lot of the songs, to be honest. My copy of the Green Ghost Mile vinyl arrived yesterday. It also made me go, for real though, absolutely gorgeous. I feel very lucky to have been able to snatch one up for myself. Do you think we'll be getting any Riffing with Scott Ghost Mile edition? I would like to. I would really like to have the tabs to go with it, but the tabs take so damn long. Like compiling all of the transcriptions for this album took like months. Just wherever I had time, I'd sit down and tab some of it, and it really takes a long time because you've obviously got to. We write this stuff by feel. We don't notate it first, so we actually have to go back and think about the rhythms and transcribe the rhythms of what we're playing. And you know, Voyager songs rhythmically aren't always easy, so it does take time. I would like to do it. Even if we don't have tabs, you know, maybe we'll still do it. So if you feel like the tabs aren't entirely necessary in order for this to still have value, then just let me know in the comments, because you know, if this is something you all want to see, then that gives me more content to make. What song has your favorite riff? For me, seeing you live. I think it's Domination Game. Sick. I actually really like the end riff of this song. It's really fun. It's really hard to play like tightly and with groove. I also really love playing the chorus of Ascension. I really do like the riff in What a Wonderful Day as well. The whole that's one of my faves. That's good fun. Domination Game. Man, it's been a long time since I played that. Very, very long time. That's in drop B as well, so that's in a different tuning. Cool. So then we go into a big... This is sort of the section that leads us into the last riff. So like this whole part is sort of building and building and building and becoming more and more anthemic and epic. So this section's just big, open, dotted eighth note rhythm. And then we've got the chord progression that sits over the last riff, but we're just doing them as big octaves to start off with. We go into the riff at the end. This is a hard one. The tempo changes here completely. Real nasty one. One of those ones that I think you just have to downpick it. That's how you get that sort of real punchy, aggressive kind of tone to it. Yeah, real nasty. Hard riff to play right and hard riff to groove over as well. Do you write the songs with Danny's lyrics in mind, or do you have a theme, or do you just go for it? Depends on the song. Like Bright Star, we referenced, we used the lyrics as a way to kind of create some of the riffs. Like the big breakdown riff kind of was born of Danny telling me that the song was actually quite cynical and he wanted something that was really dirty and messed up to kind of represent that. I at the time didn't realize that the song was like supposed to be that way because it felt so poppy and kind of fun. And he was like, no, this song's pretty cynical. So I was like, oh, okay. So there have been moments where the lyrics or the theme of the tune has sort of inspired what we create. What a Wonderful Day is a good example of that as well. We wanted something that was a little darker, a little more industrial, a little more mechanical as a result of what the song is about, which is basically just the daily grind. So again, that breakdown riff was sort of inspired from the theme of the song, which is just like, it's not actually in fact a wonderful day. Is it Alex singing in the middle section? Yes, it is. Yeah, that is Alex. Yeah, he channeled his inner Dev for that section, which is awesome. I can remember when I first heard those takes, I was like, fuck me, that's awesome. It's so sick. So nice, like having those moments where your bandmates like really blow your socks off. That was one of those moments. How do you mute the string on the octave C sharps and Bs in the strumming section before this riff? Good question. So on the low string, I'm using the underside of my pointer finger. So basically what you want to do, this is something that typically as classical guitarists or as guitar players that learn to play all your open chords, you're used to having to keep your fingers quite upright and quite curled in order to not get in the way of other strings. But here I'm laying my pointer finger in particular a lot flatter than I would normally, so that it mutes this string in the center. And the other thing as well is that I'm not strumming particularly aggressively, because obviously when the strings are tuned to A, I have to be a little bit more gentle. Essentially, the pointer finger is the MVP of all of these octaves. Same deal with this one. You want to basically use the underside of your pointer finger to mute that string. Simi prefers using her middle finger, I'm pretty sure, for some of it. So she'll put her middle finger floating over 3rd fret, but just not pressing down. You get basically the same outcome doing it that way. I just use my pointer finger. You just have to be really mindful of the low B string in particular. Do you ever write a riff and go, holy shit, that's amazing? Yes, I definitely have had those moments, not to toot my own horn or anything. But sometimes you just write something that you're really stoked about. Yeah, it does happen. I remember years ago seeing a doco with Slash when he said he wrote the main solo for November Rain. He sat back and thought he had written something special. It wasn't until Axel heard it that they just knew. Yeah, sometimes you have those moments where you just have a riff that's just great. You don't need to do anything to it. Sometimes it's just a first take, like, killer riff. Sometimes it happens. Doesn't happen all that often. A lot of the time I slave over the riff and take something that was initially crap and turn it into something that's worthwhile through just brute force. But sometimes you can get it sooner than other times. Does everyone in Voyager write the songs? Yeah, these days we do. Typically, like a lot of the songs, Danny kind of fleshes out like a main skeleton for it, and then we like rip it apart. So, there have been times where Danny may have written like a verse, a pre-chorus, and a chorus, and the only thing that ends up actually making the cut is like the chorus or something, and we end up like shifting and changing the verse and the pre-chorus so much that it doesn't or hardly resembles what the original demo had in it. But the way that I think about it is you basically have like a catalyzing idea, like whether it's a riff or a chorus or something like that. It might even be like, half a song that writes itself. And that then sparks all of the ideas that come forth that end up, finishing the song off. Sometimes it's just a riff. Sometimes there's one idea. And that actually happened a lot on this record. Like the drum groove in Saccharine Dream, the that groove was something that Alex and Ash basically wrote together and just sort of fleshed out. And we wrote a verse around that idea, and then most of the song had that sort of groove kind of floating throughout it. So it just takes one idea to kind of spark a whole string of ideas afterward. Cool. That's actually the whole song. I just realized. Yeah, I just played through that last riff. You want to really you want to try and downpick as much of this as possible. Very fatiguing, but when you're running on adrenaline on stage, it affects you a lot less. And that, my friends, is Water Over the Bridge. Not really much more to say about it. It's a pretty straight ahead song. It's pretty anthemic. It kind of becomes more and more proggy as the song kind of goes on. Just a really fun, groovy, epic anthemic song that tends to translate live quite nicely. It's quite a fun song to play live. Any tips on keeping motivated when learning to play guitar? I started learning at the start of lockdown and I'm still loving it, but I think I'm calling into a bit of a rut. Let me think about that. I get into ruts like all the time, but I find that the way I get out of it changes. So like it really depends on your mindset. I did hear Dev say a really interesting thing that I thought was brilliant. I'd never really thought about it that way, but he gets out of the way anything that he knows is kind of plaguing his mind at any point in time that may detract him from sitting down and just writing something and being creative. It could be anything, it could be like, oh, I was supposed to, clean the house. I was supposed to go mail this letter. It could be anything as innocuous as that. But if it's sitting there in the back of your mind begging you to do it because you have to, just do that first. And then when you actually sit down to be creative, you've got nothing else to think about other than just being creative. I thought that was like a brilliant piece of advice. He mentions it in his new podcast series. I thought that was just brilliant, to be honest, because my brain is constantly filled with crap to do all the time. Like my brain doesn't stop. In terms of like actual things to motivate your learning, I think it comes down to just finding music that resonates with you and trying to find something that is something that is challenging, deliberately challenging, something that doesn't necessarily sit in your comfort zone. Like, one thing I always talk about with teaching is that the inability to do something is an opportunity for you to get better. And so it is actually really useful to know what you're not good at in order to get better. That sounds like a no-brainer, but you'd be surprised as to how often you pick up the guitar or whatever instrument you're playing and you start playing things that you already know. And if you do that all the time, then you don't get better. You just, you're still playing. That's cool. You picked up the instrument. That's good. But you don't feel accomplished. You only feel accomplished if you actually achieve something that you weren't able to do a moment before. So what I'd recommend doing is, before even picking up the instrument, ask yourself, what's something that you wish you could do? And then actually just do whatever you can to achieve it. Try and find practice routines or an idea or a method to achieve that outcome. But I find it's a really interesting brain hack. I've used it multiple times where before I even pick up the instrument, I've asked myself that question: what do you actually want to do when you pick up the instrument? Even if it's something as vague as I want to write a song, at the very least, that when you pick up the guitar, you have that intention of like picking up the instrument and actually creating something. Even if it sucks, it doesn't matter. The more you do that, the more you get into like a positive cycle with your practice, I think. But yeah, avoid picking up the instrument and playing the same stuff all the time. Damn, the captions are simply horrible. Well, I mean, look, it's trying to work out what I'm saying in real time, so, give the algorithm some credit. Who do you think is the best musician in the band? You know what? Ash constantly blows me away. Constantly. I think I have a soft spot for drummers because I think drums are phenomenally difficult. You have to be so on the money all the time. Like, to me, drummers have the least amount of room and margin for error. So, yeah, when I see a good drummer, I just, like, froth. So, yeah, probably Ash. But, I mean, like, I love everyone in this band, and they've all influenced me and made me a better player as well in some respect, So, it's hard to say. But I think most of the time I find myself just, like, going, fucking hell, Ash, that drum groove is so sick. It's the bass player in me, I think. It's the bass player in me that makes me go, yeah, drums are where it's at. That advice is hard to follow with a baby. Yeah, look, that is difficult. Any tips on improving finger flexibility? I'm trying to learn Overkill by Colin Hay, but I can't stretch my fingers enough to play some of the open chords. That is a hard one. Specifically for finger dexterity. I mean, what you want to do to start off with is you want to get your fingers to be independent of each other. So everyone knows that classic chromatic, just everyone knows that exercise. The thing about that as an exercise is that if it's allowing your fingers to move independently of one another, then it's a great exercise. What you can do is you can sort of extend that idea by just stretching the hand out to do to have a space between each note, so that you're not playing semitones anymore. You're actually playing tones. And it's cool because it actually creates a Mixolydian mode. So it creates something that's more musical as well. So all I'm doing there is, rather than going finger per fret, I'm creating a space between my pointer and my middle finger. So I've now got a 2-fret stretch there, and then I've got a 2-fret stretch with my middle and pinky. So rather than starting with chords, start with scales, start with single notes. And hopefully that will then sort of train the fingers to sit a little bit more open. Start with single notes. And you can turn these into all kinds of exercises. You can do that sort of Paul Gilbert 6-note exercise. That one, which is pretty popular. I mean, he does it like this, but you can do it instead, and that'll actually get those fingers stretching out. Yeah, so that's a good one. Big love for the rhythm section. Always big love for the rhythm section. If you guys were given one guitar that you had to play for the rest of your career, would it be the one that you are playing tonight? I love this guitar. I just want another Mayonnaise. I just want another one. Like, this is the first Mayonnaise I've ever owned, and so will always have like a place in my heart. But I would obviously change a few things. Like, if I had the budget for it, I would probably get a new DeVelle with the shoulder, because this is a flat top, which I love the look of, but isn't necessarily the most comfortable thing on earth. But all of the new DeVelle models have that shoulder on them now, which is really super nice. I would probably put loom inlays on the neck itself, because I sometimes do find myself getting a little confused when I'm up on first, second, third string when I'm up here. I would really like another sort of indicator to know where I am, just because I find that having that visual cue of like the fret markers is really useful. So I'd probably put fret markers on one side here, and then fret markers on this side here. Just a couple of small design things. In terms of the actual instrument itself and the way it's built and the general overall specs of it, I wouldn't change a damn thing on it, to be honest. I really love the Sentient Nazguls that are the stock pickups in this. I think they sound sick. I was saying before that I'd probably give some bare knuckles a go. But I mean, the thing about guitars at this level is that they're all good. It's all really just about personal preference. It's about what you like personally. So yeah, I love the feel of the ebony board. I've always loved mahogany body guitars because they feel solid. They feel, I don't know, I want something that's a little heavier. But yeah, I mean, it would basically be this instrument with a couple of changes, essentially. So yeah, probably the DeVelle. Hey Chris, thanks for tuning in. Just so you know, you can go back and watch all of the videos. They're all saved online on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch. Obviously, you can see all of the links down below if you want to go check them out. They're all, like, I think YouTube has all of them up as a playlist. I compile it every week. So if you're ever behind and want to go listen to me ramble for an hour to an hour and a half, you can go back and check out the videos on YouTube. Sick. That was a nice snappy one. Sorry I was a bit late tonight. Next week, last track, Runaway, last one. We'll bid this album adieu, and then we'll maybe move on to a new record, maybe move on to something completely different to spice things up. I know Ash is really keen to do some streaming as well, so you'll probably be hearing from him at some point in the future. Yeah, so stay tuned. Obviously, if you want to support Voyager, you can head over to our Bandcamp, voyager.bandcamp.com, and pick up some of our merch. Please know that anything that you purchase from our store here, basically the money goes directly to us. So this is the best way to support us as musicians. And obviously, thank you so much in advance for anyone who does support us financially, because this is what allows us to keep doing the things that we're doing. So we really, really appreciate it. We have just recently released I've done a re-release for Ghost Mile, and it now comes in a spiffy new clear teal vinyl, which is very, very cool. And we've also got the classic black vinyl as well. Plus a couple of new shirts, which are pretty damn sweet, all designed by our very own Ashley Ducourt. The guy is an absolute genius. So yeah, if you feel like picking up a record, head over to voyager.bandcamp.com and you can pick up an album from us. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. That was a nice, short and snappy one, but we'll be back for next week for Runaway, and then from there we'll maybe have a chat and see what we want to do in future streams. All right, well, take care everyone, and I'll see you all next week.